Omagyanatimirandasya Niranjana Samapaya Chakshua Amrivitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guru Namaha Mukam Karoti Vashava Pamdam Bandayati Vedi Yati Vatamaham Vande Shri Guru Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaha Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravam Gacharya University Shalashan Yovari Bhaskar Jadi Sapadana Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Guru Devaya Srivasadi Gaura Bhakti Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama Yesterday, we read translation from text 4, Sri Upadeshamrita, and we read a little bit from the very beginning of the Prabhupada. The verse was the Dati Pratigvinati Guyo Bhakti Prasthiti Vote Vojayate Jaiva Sad Vidham Viti Lakshana. Offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasadam and offering prasadam are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. Yesterday we spoke a lot about loving exchanges. Spoke a little bit about loving exchanges between the Lord and his devotees. Of course, we only scratched the surface. But the essence of what we spoke about yesterday is how much inclined Krishna is to accept an offering when there's love. It's the ingredient which makes it very relishable to him. Of course, when he relishes, then the devotee who is aspiring for nothing more than Krishna's pleasure gets pleasure. And we gave some examples of how Krishna is very eager to accept offerings. Anybody remember anything from yesterday?
Rice.
Rice. What about rice?
He liked rice.
Huh?
He liked the rice.
Broken rice.
Broken rice.
Okay. Why did you like the rice?
Because it
Who
was.
was it, by the way? Who liked it? Lord Chaitanya. Well, why did you like?
Bhakti.
Huh?
No.
Bhakti.
Bhakti. Okay. Yes. It's Jono.
Give him love.
Actually, the example of the rice we gave is he didn't even give it. He didn't give it. Lord Chaitanya forcefully took it. And he forcefully took it because he was so eager to take something from the hands of his devotees. Which is a good indicator of the great value there is when the devotee actually aspires for Krishna's pleasure. Aspiring for Krishna's pleasure is actually a very exalted goal. And actually attaining it is not always so easy as we spoke about yesterday. We go to that verse with Prahlad Maharaj that even if you perform austerities, sacrifice. Anybody remember all the list of things that Lord Maharaj gave us? Things that were unacceptable by the Lord without bhakti. Jesus, yes.
Becoming an expert Brahmin.
Expert Brahmana, yes. He knew to become an expert Brahmana, chanting perfectly all the Vedic mantras. Somebody may think, wow, I wish I could do that. Why? Why? That's the question. Is the motive. Why? Because I want to become an expert Brahmin? For recognition? Prestige? No. And there's even statements in Chaitanya Charitamrita which give indication that Krishna's more pleased when the gopis chastise him than he's pleased by the Vedic hymns spoken by the Vedas personified. Imagine. Now, expert Brahmin who's expert at mantras, he can chant so many mantras, sit there for a full yoga, Swalaha, Swalaha, do all the mantras very perfectly. But Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Adi Leelas describe that when there's gopis chastise them, why? Because the words of the gopis are saturated with love. Not only love, but spontaneous love, which Krishna is very inclined to accept when devotees can serve him in spontaneous love and devotional service. Yes. Nayam Sukapo Bhagavan Dehinam Gopika Sutam. In the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is explained that the Supreme Lord is pleased by the devotees engaged in spontaneous devotion to him. He's not so pleased even if one performs austerities, if some performs great sacrifices, but spontaneous devotion. He's so pleased that he becomes conquered by that spontaneous love. And become conquered means he becomes subordinate to that love. This is something, of course, which is a special characteristic of spontaneous love, which the residents of Braj, Vrindavan, Loka Vrindavan, they are always engaged in spontaneous love to the Supreme Lord. And because their love is so strong, that they think nothing of Krishna's pleasure, Krishna, of course, thinks nothing but them, as we indicated yesterday. And he, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives one example that the devotees who love Krishna have spontaneous affection. Their love is so powerful that actually Krishna sometimes becomes so overwhelmed by that love that he forgets he's God, which may sound like a God forget he's God. He's all-knowing, so he must know that he's God. But God even forgets he's God because their love is so powerful, so strong, that he wants to subordinate himself exactly to the mood of wanting to please him, either as a parent, as a friend, as a lover. And therefore he forgets. This point is brought out in the example of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also brings out. Well, before I get to that example, he gives the example that just like a bee, when a bee enters into a flower, when the bee enters into the flower, it's a lotus flower. At night, the lotus petals close, and the bee becomes trapped. So, have you ever trapped a bee between two panes of glass? Sometimes, you close the window or close the screen, and all of a sudden you see there's a bee in there. What is it? It's always trying to get out, right? Looking for. Goes up to the corner, goes to the side, goes to that side, wants to get out. When Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives the example that Krishna is just like a bee that enters into the lotus flower of the hearts of his devotees who have spontaneous love. And even though he gets covered and trapped in their hearts, there's so much nectar in that flower, they don't care. They don't care. In the same way, when Krishna gets trapped in the heart of his devotees, there's so much nectar, even when he gets covered and he forgets he's God. He doesn't care. For him, he's Krishna's friend. I mean, he's his cowherd boy's friend. He's the lover of the gopis. He's the son of Jasoda. And for instance, there's example given of the prayer of Queen Kunti. The Queen Kunti describes how she's frankly very bewildered when she sees Krishna afraid of the stick of Mother Jasoda. And because she's bewildered because she sees that Krishna is crying. Now someone may say, well, Queen Kunti, she actually knows Krishna's divinity. She doesn't think that Krishna's her son. Doesn't think she knows that Jesus is what's called Aishwarya. She's awe and veneration towards the Supreme Lord. So when she sees Krishna crying, when Mother Jasoda comes out to the stick, she can really think, well, he's pretending to cry. And it's all very logical if Krishna's pretending to cry. Perfectly logical. He's God. He's pretending to cry. But why is Kunti so bewildered? Kunti is so bewildered because Krishna's not pretending. And that bewilders her. He's really scared. That's the power of love. God is scared. Nobody is scared of God. He was death personified. But he's scared by the spirit of Mother Jasoda. Such is the power of love. So in the same way, when Krishna hears the gopis' chastisement, it steals his mind away from the reverential hymns of the Vedas. Because he's just so attracted to this kind of love. This is kind of love that Lord Chaitanya came to give. Yoga Dhamma Prabhataya Nama Sankirtan Chari Bhava Bhakti Dina Nachamu Bhuvan. He says, I have come. I will come to inaugurate the Sankirtan movement. I will make the whole world dance in ecstasy, realizing the four ecstatic mellows of spontaneous love of Chari Bhava Bhakti Dina. Four ecstatic mellows of love of God. That's what Lord Chaitanya came to give. Yes, he came to give the holy name, but he came to teach by his example what is real love. Of course, we cannot imitate that. And by hearing these statements, we should not think that we in any way can imitate that level of love of God. But nonetheless, this is the kind of love that Lord Chaitanya came to give, and devotees to hear about this type of love, which is manifested in the hearts of those devotees who worship Him or serve Him in spontaneous love. Then its result is, in a way, there's a desire and attraction within the heart. I'd like to serve Krishna in this way. He really relishes it. Relishes it so much. But we can't imitate. In the meantime, we have to hear and follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. Atishtam samadhatu, nashik nosi maistiro, abhyasi yogena tato japam dayanjani. Krishna first tells Arjuna in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, you should always think of me. Always think of me, just absorb in ecstatic love of me. But if you can't do that, atishtam samadhatu, nashik nosi maistiro, then you follow the regular principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, cultivate a desire to attain me. Follow the regular principles. We oftentimes explain that when Krishna is saying, follow the regular principles of Bhakti Yoga, He's not telling Arjuna to no illicit sex, no intoxication, and gambling, and no eating. This is not his instruction for Arjuna. Follow the regulatory principles means regulate your life in such a way that you're always hearing about them. These are regulatory principles of bhakti. Regulated. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains also in a commentary to the verse Smartavya Satatam Vishnu or Nismartavya Najakuchip Savavidi Nasinasur Etira in the Pinkura, that Krishna must always be remembered. He must never be forgotten. All the rules and all the prohibitions given in the scriptures are meant to serve these two principles. But we should always remember Krishna, never forget him. But he makes the point that because this verse states, don't forget Krishna, it must be for those who have the potential to forget him. Otherwise, why would we have to be told, don't forget? Right? Just like if you say somebody, you gave somebody key, right? I've done this before. Give somebody a key and say, don't forget, you have the key. Why do you say don't forget? Because there's a propensity to forget. You know, sometimes they forget. So this verse says, don't forget Krishna. But if somebody's always remembering Krishna, then why does somebody have to bother to say, don't forget Krishna? So it must be that this verse is for people who have a tendency to forget. And therefore, he says in this verse, then in his commentary, in this verse, Smartavya Satatam Vishnu. Satatam generally is translated in Sanskrit as always. Like Satatam Kirtayam Tolamam. Krishna says, always chanting my glories, bowing down before me. But in this verse, Satatam doesn't mean always. It means, has a different meaning. It means every day. Every day, regulate. That's what Krishna says. Atachitam samhata nashikno samayasthira. Every day, regulate your life. So somehow or other, Krishna is there in your mind, in your thoughts, whether through your chanting, through your hearing, through your remembering, through your worship, through your befriending, whether it's surrendering everything, any of the one or all 9 of the processes of devotional service. Every day, give it some time. So, we were explaining that when Prahlad Maharaj told his friends that even if you're expert Brahmin chanting all kinds of Vedic mantras, these Vedic mantras are not really of any value. And we quoted the verse, Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya Jati Shastra Chapastapa Papanasya Deha Mandanam Lopavanjana. If a person is devoid of devotion, even if he's an expert in chanting all kinds of Vedic mantras, even if he performs all kinds of austerities, even if he takes his birth in a great family or nation, even if he knows so many verses, expert Brahman, you're like ornaments of a dead body. Ornament, what is an ornament of a dead body? It's a dead body. That's its destinations, even ashes and dust or stool. The value of ornaments of a dead body. So what is the value of, of all of these external things? There's no devotion. So therefore, gopis, when they chastise Krishna because their love is so spontaneous, it steals Krishna's mind away from the reverential hymns of the Vedas. He's much more attracted to them. So we spoke about that yesterday also, about love and why Krishna is so much attracted when his devotees have love. And we talked about cultivating love. And we use Krishna as the example as the person, which is, of course, a very important element for everybody who studies Vaishnava philosophy to come to understand that Krishna is a person. And then he has desires. And we should try to please him. And so he sets the standard of loving relationships. And whenever there's something offered in love, we gave an example how Krishna actually wants to reciprocate that love and give something in exchange. Does anyone remember the story we told yesterday of Javasana and Maharaj Ambaresh? Actually one? Huh? Well, what was the conclusion?
I said, I want my nurse. This chocolate is chasing me. So you're at so if you want mercy, you have to.
Wow.
If you want mercy, then you have to go to the.
Ambaresh, because he has no heart. And why did he give the heart?
His heart is this. So different heart.
Yes. He gave the heart because he wanted to give him something, and everything else he tried to give him. Ambaresh said, "Don't just let me serve you." Well, we gave the same example that was probably full of Shira. Well, Lord Chaitanya manifested. Did you turn down the volume?
I did.
You did. Okay. Is that okay? Everyone can hear? Yes, okay. The Lord Shira was also asked by the Lord to accept the benediction. This is interesting. He said, I can make you a king. Sorry, I don't want to be a king. I can give you opulence. I can give you a position. No interest in it. Interest in position, wealth, power, strength. You be my master, let me be your servant, birth after birth. And then, of course, Lord Chaitanya said, okay, elevation. Look at me. I'll be your master, and you're my servant. Fulfill this desire for people, birth after birth. So he naturally wants to reciprocate. So these types of exchanges between the Lord and his devotee, they give evidence of what a loving exchange is all about. A loving exchange is what? That's offered with love. Surprise! That's a loving exchange. When something is offered with love, and then when it's offered with love, then the person is thinking that, oh, just see how much love is in the offering. Let me accept. And naturally, when something is offered with love, the natural inclination of a devotee is, let me reciprocate. Let me offer something also with love. But the difference between these types of exchanges is that between the recipients of both exchanges, there's never expectation. As soon as the expectation is there, then immediately that diminishes the quality of the offering, the way it was offered. Krishna is very easy to satisfy. All he asks is, think of me, worship me, offer your offerings unto me. Give me a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water. I'm very much inclined to accept it if the love is there. And then, of course, the wonderful revelation that takes place within the heart when there's actually some desire to please Krishna is that you feel pleased. The different kind of pleasure. You can't, it's incomparable. Bhajaniya Paramasuka Matra Susukadram. Srila Jiva Goswami explains in the Srimad Bhagavatam commentary, to the degree that Krishna is pleased, we become pleased. It's just a natural event that takes place in the heart. If Krishna is pleased, we feel satisfied. Because that's what a devotee is, that's the goal of all of his service, is to please Krishna. It's the goal, everything. That's the fruit, topmost fruit. Everything he's doing is, if I can do something that pleases Krishna, then my life is successful. And if Krishna is not pleased, then I've wasted my time. Damas finished tatmosam, Vishwaksino Katasuya, no party in your dealing team Shama, everything capable. Srimad Bhagavatam says that thou must finish the Dhamma. Occupational activities a person performs is considered to be so much useless labor. Useless labor. If it doesn't provoke an attraction for remembering Krishna and hearing about him. Useless labor. So, therefore, loving relationships, one type of loving relationship we spoke about yesterday, and we elaborated on it. The detail is offering gifts and accepting gifts. But the other type of loving relationship, we didn't speak so much about. We alluded to its existence, said how much it's important. But it's revealing one's mind in confidence and inquiring confidentially. This is a loving relationship. How difficult it is sometimes to find that. It's so elusive amongst. Unfortunately, many devotees sometimes feel like, can't reveal my mind to anybody. I'm afraid to reveal my mind. But if I reveal my mind, it might show a sign of weakness, and if I show a sign of weakness, I know it's going to be exploited. And I'm afraid to show weakness in the presence of others who may potentially exploit my weakness. That's very unhealthy, especially if out of the 6 types of loving exchanges, 2 of them, 33% of me, I to reveal one's mind in confidence and inquired confidentially. But yet, it's destroyed if there's no trust. And it's very interesting to know the placement of this verse in Upadeshamrita. It comes right after the verse. What is it? Teksti Atyahara Prayasascha Pajalpa Niyamagraha. No, that's Usaha. That's text 3. Text 2. Atyahara Prayasascha. 6 kinds of activities which are unfavorable for bhakti. And one of them is Pajalpa. Everybody knows what Pajalpa is. We've heard it. But we know what it is. Well, it's for advanced devotees. They only speak about Krishna. Therefore, they can avoid Prajalpa. But it's interesting that Rupa Goswami puts this as one of the impediments, obstacles for advancing a devotional service, Prajalpa. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written essays, each of these 6 activities which are not conducive for the advancement of devotional service. And he writes an essay specifically on Prajalpa. And in the topic of Prajalpa, he gives so many different examples of what are Prajalpa. So many. This is godless Prajalpas are impediments to devotional service. There are many types. One is called useless power. I'll let you figure out for yourself what useless talk is. Another one is arguments. There's a whole, I'm not going to get into all of these. I'm only going to cover one of them. But although there's definitely, because arguments are considered to be like prajalpa when they're useless. If they're arguments aimed for understanding what is siddhanta, then these arguments are healthy. But sometimes people get into arguments for one reason only. They want to be right. And they'll argue forever until it's established they're right. Like it was just like Papa tells the story of the scissors and the knife, of the two men arguing amongst themselves. One man says, speaking about the object, that it's a scissors, and the other man says, no, it's a knife. And the other one says, no, it's a scissors, and the other one says, no, it's a knife. And the man was convinced it's a knife. He pushed the man into the water. He fell into the water, and he started to go under. And then he put up his hands from out of the water as he was drowning. Gotta be right. So these are useless arguments to argue just to be right. One should actually want to know the truth. And Lord Chaitanya, Kaviraj Goswami says in Chaitanya Charitamrita that it's healthy to try to understand what is the truth. But to argue for the sake of wanting to be right, that's a useless argument. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur goes on and explains what useless arguments are. But that's not the topic for today. We're going to talk about. So, useless talks, arguments, gossip, Hare Krishna. Village talk. Debates. Another type of prajalpa is fault finding in others. Speaking falsehoods. Blaspheming devotees and worldly talk. Are all called prajalpa. Now, as I said, there's a lot to be said in all of these, and Bhaktivinoda discusses it. But I'm going to talk about, because we're putting this into perspective, about revealing one's mind in confidence and inquiring confidentially. I'm going to talk about talking without reason about other people is extremely adverse to devotional service. This was, again, Bhaktivinoda. Without reason. I'm sure everyone will always find a reason. Sometimes the reason is because I can't stop thinking about it. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur also talks about that. The people who speak about others without reason, he says their minds can never be peaceful. Never be peaceful. They can never think of Krishna, and their minds can never be peaceful. Why? Because they're obsessed with their reason, because I can't stop them. And we have to ask ourselves, why can't I stop thinking about it? Well, maybe because there's a need to correct the problem. Okay. And another reason is because it's a great way to not have to think about Krishna. It's a very, very wonderful opportunity to not have to think about Krishna. And he talks about this also. So I'm going to take advantage of the opportunity of being in an English-speaking audience. Usually where I am, I can't read something, because it has to be, every sentence has to be translated. So I take advantage of an English-speaking audience and read something. I will comment a little bit about this because it's very relevant. Very, very relevant for having these two essential types of loving exchanges. If, of course, if that interests us. I believe it does. I hear it from a lot of people Sometimes I hear devotees say, I'm so lonely. I'm physically present, physically around others, but at the same time, I'm so lonely. But it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way at all. Let's read. Talking without reason about other people is extremely adverse to devotional service. Many people talk about others to establish their own reputation. I'm just reading it. I'm just a messenger, huh?
You're lucky.
That's why I'm taking advantage of reading. It's right there. Establish their own. Many people talk about others to establish, but you have to understand that speaking about others is a natural proclivity for the spiritual. It's a natural proclivity. If you listen and you read Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, you read about the cowherd boys, and especially if you read some of the works of our previous acharyas who reveal some of the discussions that take place amongst those devotees who have ecstatic love for Krishna, they can't stop talking about others. But the only thing is that other happens to be Krishna. So it's a natural proclivity to have the mind absorbed in thoughts of someone. That's what Krishna says. Always think of me. Always offer your prayers to me. Always worship me. Certainly you'll come to me. Krishna's, hello? Hello? You want to say something about somebody? Well, if you really want to say something about somebody, you'll find there's a lot to say about me. And not only that, the more you speak about me, the more your heart becomes cleansed. It's just, it's a natural purifying process. Because Krishna is Bhavitra. And Krishna says, what is it? Naham tishtami vaikunti yoginam hridiyeshu va. Tata tishtami narada yatra gayanti mad. He says to Narada, oh Narada, I'm not in the Vaikuntha planets. Of course, he is in the Vaikuntha planets. But he's telling Narada, I'm not in the Vaikuntha planets, nor am I in the hearts of yogis. Of course, he is in the hearts of yogis also. But he's there manifested according to their desires. In Vaikuntha, he's Vaikuntha now. In the yogis, he's yogi now. But wherever the devotees are discussing my glories about my pastimes in the spiritual world, he's Krishna. He says, I'm not in the Vaikuntha planets, nor am I in the hearts of yogis. But wherever my devotees are discussing my glories, I'm there. I'm very eager to be there. I manifest myself with the devotees are discussing much chitta magata prana bodhya takparaspuram. The natural topic for discussion amongst devotees is chanting Krishna's glories. Devotees derive great satisfaction and bliss, enlightening one another and conversing about me, Krishna says. So it's very natural to speak about others. Of course, when that's those others are Krishna or Krishna's pure devotees also. Like we oftentimes quote a verse from the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Very wonderful verse. That pure devotional service is so transcendently potent that simply by hearing about it, simply by repeating it in response to what we hear, simply by meditating on it, simply by faithfully and respectfully accepting that it exists, simply by praising the service of others, that even a person who hates the demigods and is envious of all the entities in the universe can immediately become purified. So, praising the service of others. We can praise the service of others. One time, Lord Chaitanya was approached by a Brahmana in the Holiness. And the Brahmin was telling Lord Chaitanya, he said that previously, he fell at Lord Chaitanya's feet, he said, previously I did not recognize devotees. And I was thinking about devotees, and he was actually thinking about confessing this to Lord Chaitanya. Previously I was thinking about devotees, and I was minimizing them. I spoke harshly about devotees. I didn't understand their true value as I understand now. What should I do? How can I rectify myself from thinking this way? And Lord Chaitanya gave an example. He says, when a person drinks poison, he can counteract the effects of the poison by drinking the nectar of immortality. Ambrosia. No? Amrita. Yes. He says, similarly, for a person who has used his tongue to speak ill of devotees with the same tongue. This is the person with the tongue drinks poison, he can drink Amrita. So with the same tongue, he should glorify the activities of the devotees. In this way, he can counteract. And instructed this Brahmana, Holiness. This is how to overcome the effects of speaking ill of Vaishnavas. So, we can speak about others to glorify. And when we appreciate, just like yesterday we were giving the example that for a devotee who's a little introspective and knows that within his heart he sees that there's still so many anarthas, and if we see somebody who doesn't have, or who seems to have overcome or has this anartha under control, then he serves that devotee. Because he wants to develop that same quality. Or sometimes he may hear another devotee speak about this devotee. Oh, this devotee, he never criticizes others. Something like that. Or this devotee, when he worships the deity, he's always on time, he's always punctual, he's always clean, he's always very conscientious about serving the deities with great care and attention. And when we hear that, we think, well, I'd like to serve the deities with great care and attention. Maybe I should learn how to serve the deities with great care and attention, and serve the devotees who serve the deities with great care and attention. In other words, there's some benefit to hearing about them. So, to speak about others for this purpose, that's okay. But if somebody is speaking about others, as we said, many people talk about others to establish their own reputation, not to establish. They think, speak about others in a way to put them down, then how better. So, and therefore the next statement says, what is it? Being envious, some people are accustomed to discuss others' character. The minds of those who are busy in such topics can never be fixed on the lotus feet of Krishna. That's the evidence. Yeah, it's too disturbed. Because the mind has an excuse. Talking about others should be rejected in all respects. But there's some good prajalpas. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur will also go on to explain what's good talking about others. But in the practice of devotional service, there are many favorable topics that are faultless, even though they are about others. Okay? Feeling a little relief? It's okay to speak about others. But now he's going to give a definition, define the limits. In order to completely renounce talking about others, one needs to live in the forest. Why? Because there's no others to see, no others to talk about. But when it's living in a society, sometimes topics need to be discussed. Now he's going to say, speak that two different types of practicing devotees are the householders and the renunciates. Of course, this is, of course, renunciates who used to go to the forest. We have an exceptional circumstance somehow. We have renunciates, but at the same time, we find the renunciates are in managerial positions having to talk about others. It's
Paradox.
paradox. Yeah. Who said that? Paradox. But he's talking about renunciates who go to the forest and live off roots and berries, and the tree bark, and worship the deity, and they don't need to. They're socially dead. Socially dead. So I'm trying to put it in perspective. Different types of practicing devotees are the householders and the renunciates. Because the renunciates have no business whatsoever with sense enjoyment, they can give up talking about others in all respects. In other words, the renunciates just live by begging. They accept whatever it comes to them, and they accept what is necessary to maintain body and soul. They're not interested in accumulating more than is necessary to maintain body and soul, because they've understood the principle, Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe, Yuktam Bhairagya Uchite, you use everything in Krishna's service. That should be, of course, the principle guideline to follow. Because the renunciates has no business whatsoever with sense enjoyment, they can give up talking about others in all respects. But because a householder is engaged in earning, saving, protecting, and maintaining the family, he cannot completely give up talking about others. It is best for him to live in a Krishna-conscious family life. When all one's material activities are related with Krishna, then even his unavoidable talk about others becomes sinless and a part of devotional practice in relation to Krishna. He should not talk about others in a way that is detrimental to anyone. He should talk about others only whatever little is necessary in his Krishna-conscious family. He should not talk about others without reason. Now he's going to give other reasons for talking about others. Moreover, when a guru enlightens his disciple on some topic, then unless he occasionally talks about others, his instruction may not be clear. Like sometimes one has to try to make give an example that should be very, very careful to always be engaged properly in devotional service, be a good example, don't speak about others. And sometimes the devotees may hear such an instruction, they may think, well, can you give me an example? They may give an example of somebody who's a good example. Then they may give an example. Now, don't be like that. Don't be like that. So he has to speak this way in order to give an instruction and to make the instruction complete. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives an example right from Bhagavatam. He says sometimes he'll speak in a general way about people that you shouldn't be like. Sometimes he'll speak in a general way, sometimes he'll speak in a more specific way, and sometimes he'll a very pointed way. He has to. So he says here, unless he occasionally talks about others, his instruction may not be clear. When previous Mahajans have talked about others in this way, there is merit in such talk, not fault. Shukadeva Goswami said in the Bhagavatam, I'm not going to read the Sanskrit, I'm going to read the translation. The lifetime of such envious householders is passed at night either in sleeping or in sex indulgence, and in the daytime either in making money or maintaining family members. Persons who are devoid of Atma Tattva, they do not inquire into the problems of life, being too attached to the fallible soldiers, like the body of children and wife. Although sufficiently experienced, they still do not see their inevitable destruction. This is second canto of the Bhagavatam. Right? Shukadeva Goswami is giving an example. Don't be like this. He has to speak about, Don't be like the envious householders who live only for sex life, maintaining family members, sleeping at night, and sense gratification. Don't be like them. So sometimes he may warn and give others in a general way. This is not how you should be. Then he goes on. He said, although Sukadeva Goswami talks about the materialists in order to instruct his disciple, he's not considered a Prajalpi. Therefore, such activity should be considered beneficial. Again, in order to instruct his own disciples, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke about pseudo-renunciants in the following words from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Then he says something very heavy. I'm not going to read the Bengali. The Lord replied, I cannot tolerate seeing the face of a person who has accepted the renounced order of life, but who still talks intimately with a woman. Who's speaking about Shota Haridas. They didn't mention his name. That I cannot tolerate seeing the face of a person who's accepted the renounced order of life, but who still talks intimately with a woman. There are many persons with little in their possession who accept the renounced order of life like monkeys. They go here and there, engaging in sense gratification and speaking intimately with women. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, my mind is not under my control. It does not like to see anyone in the renounced order who talks intimately with women. He said it. He was instructing. And if you read Srila Bhakti Prabhupada's commentary at the end of the chapter, he explains that Lord Chaitanya is giving an instruction for the future generations, using Jota Haridas as an example. So he has to say something to make it very clear. It's very clear. It's abundantly clear. Then, he says, unless one speaks in this way while instructing and while concluding a subject, there's no benefit for oneself or others. Therefore, when the previous acharyas have personally set example and taught others, how will we be benefited by acting contrary to their instruction? And here's something that... And if one discusses in this way the improper behavior current in a religious sect, or improper behavior amongst the general public, then such talk is not adverse to devotional service. So, but how one talks about it, could be a whole class in itself, and I'm not going to go into how one speaks about it. But later Bhaktivinoda Thakur qualifies those who do speak about this. They better look within their hearts to make sure there's no hatred, envy, or prejudice. What is it he says? He says, but those who talk about others while influenced by devotional impediments like envy, hatred, pride, or distinction are offenders at the feet of Bhakti. So, giving you some criteria that if you're going to speak very boldly, then make sure the motive is clear. Not, like we said before, not to establish one's own reputation. I'll finish. I'm getting to an end. As I said, I'm taking advantage of the opportunity to let Bhaktivinoda Thakur speak. I've not said anything different to what he said. So he says, even if one sometimes talks about a particular person, there is no fault. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Maitreya Muni, the foremost devotee, spoke about Vena Maharaj in this way, Sanskrit. The great sage Maitreya continued, thus the king who became unintelligent due to his sinful life and deviation from the right path became actually bereft of all good fortune. He could not accept the requests of the great sages which the sages put before him with great respect, and therefore he was condemned. Sri Maitreya needed to speak about others in this way. He spoke to his audience to instruct them. This is not prajalpa. The practicing devotee normally discusses ancient history and the association of devotees. Occasionally they talk about non-devotees. Such talk is always auspicious and favorable to devotional service. But those who talk about others while influenced by devotional impediments like envy, hatred, pride, or distinction, or offenders at the feet of Bhakti Devi. This is the end of this commentary about unnecessarily speaking about others. The next is debate. We still have debate, arguments, gossip, all these other things. So they're all elaborate in one. And gives us a little sense. And why did I bring it up? Because if this is practiced, if there's a culture of controlling the urge to speak and not unnecessarily speaking unnecessarily about others, speak only when it's necessary to tell somebody about others, then the capacity for having confidential discussions becomes greater, naturally greater. Because you trust, I'm living in a culture where people don't speak unnecessarily about others. It just simply has to be a culture where people, before they engage in the spontaneous propensity to speak about others, if they simply just think first and ask themselves, do I really need to say this? Do I really? That's a simple question. Do I? And just put a little buffer between the mind and the tongue. Do I really need to say this? Is this the right person who needs to hear it? Am I actually thinking of the welfare of the person I'm speaking to? Am I actually speaking from envy, pride, the malice, hatred? Is this actually properly motivated? Do I really want to? And if we do, at least the sadhaka, this whole book, as we said, Sri Bhakti Loka, is addressed to sadhakas. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says it again and again. And he describes a sadhaka as one who does internal work. He does his own internal work. He works by looking within himself and asks himself these questions. There's an advantage to it, to ask himself this question. Why? Because I'm aspiring sadhaka. I want to be able to someday think of Krishna always remembering him. I want to someday have a peaceful mind where my mind can be more absorbed in thoughts of Krishna and his pastimes with his loving eternal associates and being very, very eager and greedy to hear these topics instead of greedy to hear lesson. Something which is no tangible value, no need to discuss. And if a kind of culture actually begins to take root, it's very, very auspicious for cultivating confidential relationships amongst Vaishnavas, because then you can speak your mind, reveal your mind in confidence, and inquire confidentially, and not be fearful that somebody's got this. First of all, you trust this person. There's a reason to trust this person. You feel convinced I have a reason to trust this person. I've heard so much about good reasons to trust this person. And I have good experience in the past. He's confidential person. He's my well-wisher. He's not thinking of causing me any harm. He's not thinking he's not trying to hurt me in any way. It takes a while to actually come to that kind of conviction, but when you actually find somebody, wow, it's It's only. This is what Chaitanya Charity preaches. Oh, now I can actually begin to understand Chaitanya Charitamrita. When I hear about all these loving exchanges between Vaishnavas and how much they derive great satisfaction from serving each other, glorifying each other. Lord Chaitanya, when he begins speaking about his devotees, he begins glorifying them. Sometimes it's as if he has 5 mouths. He can't stop speaking about them. He relishes glorifying his devotees. He derives great pleasure from it. These are all indications of a healthy environment for cultivating spiritual life. Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhakti Visacharya, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. They certainly should have followed by his example. They all gave us the example of how to live in the association of devotees. And hopefully someday really begin to cultivate these types of loving exchanges which Rupa Swami is speaking about here in the pages of Sri Buddhism. I'm going to stop here. Does anybody have any questions or comments? I'm sure actually not. Yes, always. Yes, real. I like it when we're here.
We can say that we are extremely fortunate because we get to be with hundreds, if not thousands, of devotees. So that's a great fortune. At the same time, many of these devotees are acquaintances. Acquaintances.
Yeah.
Then from that group, there may be some who we've established friendship. But in a normal setting, you may get 3, 4 good friends. People like you mentioned, people you can depend on, rely on. So I think sometimes in our society, we assume that everyone who's a devotee becomes that very close friend that we can reveal our mind and so forth. And it may not be the case. The case may be we have 3, 4 persons are very close who've known us for years, who've seen us, and they're more able to evaluate when we reveal our minds to them what really is our situation. Not
Absolutely. It only takes one.
yeah.
Even if it's not 3 or 4, it only takes one. It only takes one heart to be touched. When I speak to Gokulananda Prabhu about Srila Maharaj, watch the tears flow.
You both love him.
We both love him. Tears just flow.
You can appreciate my feelings. I can share them because you're going to appreciate what I share it.
Yeah. But of course, it's nice if it's more. But yes, your point is very well taken. We should not level the field. Rupa Goswami doesn't level the field. He gives different types of devotees and different levels of respect that we give to them. Says one should mentally honor somebody who chants the name. One should offer as a basis somebody who's initiated to engage in the worship of the deity. But one should faithfully serve and hear from those devotees whose mind is devoid of the propensity to criticize others. So he doesn't level the field. He makes it very clear. There's different levels. So we should also be very careful to not level the field and say that, yes, it's not all the same. We have to learn to discriminate. But when we learn to discriminate, we should have some basis on how to discriminate. So I 100% agree with the point that you made.
No, but the Lord Krishna in the Gita said, Samasa Vishnu, that one should be kind or offer.
Gentle, learned Brahmin sees with equal vision. Is that the words?
No, Samasa Vishnu. Yeah, she said something like that. Samasa Vishnu Bhutishu, that we have to cultivate the spiritual vision when one is a Krishna. And therefore, everyone deserves our respect. even if they're not devotees.
Exactly. Respect. But there's different levels of respect.
Yes.
Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually describes in Chaitanya Chamrita, he describes different levels of respect that we give. He says, we can even respect, every human being deserves to be respected. But it says at first, a person gets more respect is civilized human beings. Then civilized human beings, it says, the next level of respect is respect those who have some position. Just like if you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, well, why did Lord Chaitanya give respect to Chankazi? Because he had a position. Right? He respected him. He has a position, so the respect is even more. Then he says you respect somebody because they have a particular position in society. They may be a Brahmin. And then he said, another level of respect is a renunciate, a sannyasi. He said, but beyond that is devotion. The highest level of respect is devotion. So he gives different levels of respect. Where do you place your respect? The biggest investment of that respect. You respect everyone. Lord Chaitanya actually raised, in Chaitanya Bhagavad, he's raising his hands, he declares, he said, please respect all living entities throughout the universes. They're my parts and parcels. He said, anyone who never criticizes any living being and chants my name, certainly I will deliver him. It's Chaitanya Bhagavad. And then he goes on to explain of those persons who on one hand worship the deity, but at the same time criticize others, saying, because they don't see that I'm in the heart of all living beings. He says, like a person who washes my feet, and with the other hand, he beats me over the head with a club. So many places in Shastra. So respect, being ready to offer all respect to others, but there's different levels of respect. And therefore, I can define, according to Srila Jiva Goswami, Bhakti Sandarbha, he describes what is disrespect. He says disrespect is to willfully cause pain to another living being. That is disrespect. And he quotes a verse from the story of Avanti Brahman in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. Uddhava asked Krishna the question. He says, sometimes being insulted is really tough. How do you transcend it? And the whole story of the Avanti Brahman was the whole story that Krishna told Uddhava in Uddhava Gita, explaining about this Brahmin who was really insulted. But he began the chapter with a verse that sharp arrows that pierce the chest and approach the heart are not as painful as the arrows of insulting words of a materialist which enter the heart and become lodged there. So Jiva Goswami says, insulting words are more painful than having one's chest pierced with an arrow. It's more painful. Why? Because it becomes lodged in the heart. And therefore, he explains that to disrespect any living being is to willfully cause them pain, just like Narada Muni's instructions to Magari the hunter. When Magari was half killing the animal, Narada Muni instructed, why are you half killing them? You're a hunter by profession. Why don't you just kill them? When you half kill them, you're just willfully causing them pain. And when you willfully cause pain to another living being, those living beings are going to come back in the future and they're going to cause the same pain to you. So to willfully cause pain to another living being is disrespect. So we should never willfully cause pain to another living being.
And it's opposite, wishing the good for everyone. Yes, spiritual benefit for everyone.
Yes.
That is the ultimate welfare.
That's ultimate respect.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate respect. Why? Because Krishna's in the heart. Just like Lord Shiva and Daksha. Right? Daksha became so frustrated because Lord Shiva didn't offer him respect. Why? Because he thought, hey, wait a minute, I'm his father-in-law. He should get up when I'm in the assembly. He became very angry. He cursed Lord Shiva. But Lord Shiva was already offering respect, because he was offering respect to the Lord in the heart dark. He saw it in so therefore, he didn't get up. He was in a superior position, so he didn't get up to offer respect. So that we offer respect by seeing the Lord in the heart also of all living beings. And therefore we preach.
I just wanted to make another comment that I was reading a letter that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta wrote to one of his disciples. And in that letter he was saying, I have taken such a difficult test to having to criticize others. I do not know why you should take on such a difficult task.
Thank you. Is that Advaita Vani? Patramrita.
It's a big black book of the Gaudian black printer.
Which one? Upiter?
Gaudian one.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, it's
Okay, yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Mandala.
Yeah, yes. Can we end here? Is that okay? To have a kirtan?
One more.
One more. Okay, one more.
Thank you so much, Marmish, for the very relevant class. With regards to having that community with loving exchanges going on, what if there's the opposite? And, one might experience something with quarreling consciousness where there's criticism of devotees or so on. How would one deal with that? And if there's no one to say, reveal your mind to, if someone's in that situation, any advice you could give on that front?
Well, for part A of that question, just be a good example. That's the best way to deal with it. Be a good example that you show no interest in quarreling, idle talks, useless debates, gossip. Just show no interest in it. And you don't have to be offensive, just explain it. I don't know what benefit I'll get from this conversation. I mean, I'm not telling everybody all of a sudden to shut everybody else up. They'll become, I can imagine the kind of offenses that will begin to manifest when everybody just tells everybody off. But we should look, as I said, within ourselves first before correcting others. We just read that last night. That's what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said. Look inside yourself first. Before I find fault in others, before I, correct others, I should look within myself first. Am I envious of Krishna? Should I be beating myself on the head with a shoe? Because I'm not engaged. I'm calling the service. I'm engaged in devotional service to Krishna, but actually I'm only thinking of my own sense gratification. Who am I to say something? Then I just try to teach by my own example. Be quiet. That's part A. Part B, if you can't find somebody around you, then just keep your eyes open and look for some potential. And there may not be in the immediate presence. There may be somebody who comes from afar, and then you say, okay, can I call you up from time to time? It just may be the case. Maybe somebody who's distant. But if you can't find somebody, chances are you better look inside and find out why. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.